presentation, please sign in. And if you can, to receive credit that you have been acknowledged and you have participated in this workshop, could you sign in a text to the following number stated on the previous slide? And we will need all of the following as far as what's addressed, including your first name and last name with your email address. And again, a lot of it is just documentation that you were present and that you can get credit for today's professional experience. All right. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure this works.
That's all right.
All right. Okay.
I have a PowerPoint up too, if that helps you to be able to see it from here. I don't know if you can do the split screen so you can see it. But if you look at the little box at the bottom of the screen, you can see the PowerPoint. So I have it screen shared up there, so you can see it.
Yeah, yep, I can barely see it. I got it on my screen too. But ladies and gentlemen, obviously, welcome thank you so much for being here and taking some time out. I know we have busy schedules and a lot on our plate. We are here for positive reinforcement when it comes to being a coach and changing our own lives as much as we're changing student athletes' lives. And today's focus is strictly on determining the definition and practicing what it means to become a double goal coach. And right from the jump, I see that there's different kinds of people here coming from all different backgrounds and ages. I'm actually going to take a look at, I saw someone sign in. Her name is Miss Kelly. Miss Kelly, do you have any idea what double goal coach might mean or what comes to mind when I ask you that question?
Well, on the first slide, it says coaching for life lessons. That might have something to do with it.
I'm sorry, say it again.
I said that might have something to do with it because on the slide it says coaching for winning and life lessons. So I'm guessing that's it.
Exactly. So I'm glad that at least I got your attention, that you're looking at the PowerPoint instead of texting, your kids or your spouse. So I'm glad I got your attention, and that's exactly what it is. Double goal coaching is a focus that PCA focuses on, simply because I think throughout the world that we live in, we tend to focus on the wrong things at times, especially as a coach, as a ref, as fans, or even a player these days. And it is our goal and it is our honor for PCA organization to gather as much information as we can in order to teach and preach to as many coaches as we can, as many communities as we can, that you're absolutely right. Double goal coaching is coaching for winning on the scoreboard, but more importantly, life lessons in general. So which brings me to who is PCA, who is Positive Coaching Alliance. It's 80,000 plus coaches trained. With that being said, 80,000 is not even the amount of coaches that we have in our lifetime. We also have parents. We have, if you're religious, you have mentors and priests. And if you have tutors that you're failing at college, there's so many types of people that are training us these days. So when it comes to a coach, that definition is very broad. It can be very broad in a way that you have different types of coaches throughout your entire life, especially when you're experiencing different things. We also have 3.3 million youth that are reached. That alone, 3.3 million, and it's growing as we speak, which means that with the more people, the more coaches, and the way our youth is being trained these days, we need to be more prepared as we can be. So with 2,500 live workshops, that's all set and great right now. It is our job that we want to make sure that those workshops are growing, because 3.3 million is growing and 80,000 plus coaches is growing as well. There's 1 million visits. There is resources out there. There is a PCA internet source. There is a Double Goal Coach book that you can follow through. That's what I also want to mention on this slide, is the fact that I want you to be aware. Researching this stuff is definitely what we want coaches to do, because again, you can never know too much, especially about the sport or especially about your craft that you want to get better at. So with that being said, I'd like to get started with just positive coaching. Okay, and when you think of positive coaching, there's obviously the negative type coach, and our focus is strictly on the positive, but we have to acknowledge what the negative is and what the negative brings and how much it affects us in a way that why positive coaching is so important. So again, there's a bunch of different people in this room right now. There's different coaches. I'm going to go with Miss Kelly again. When you think of positive coaching, what does this phrase mean to you and why?
To me, it means a coach that's really supportive of the players, cares about the players as people, is having fun out there. Trying to challenge the kids, but also, not screaming and yelling at them, and, just having a good time, and they're in coaching for the right reasons. They're the kind of coach that I want my kids to have.
Absolutely. And I definitely agree with everything that you stated. As I'm talking to you, I would talk to other coaches and
Yeah.
other answers and stuff. And you're absolutely right. Everything that you just said made me feel comfortable knowing that you know what it takes to be a positive coach in a way that you're creating an atmosphere that best supports these student athletes. And you want them as a coach to peak at a performance level that it is the best they can bring to the table. And the qualities that you just mentioned will definitely help those student athletes along the way. And that, I think that's overall the power of being positive. When you wake up in the morning and you go to bed every night, and if your attitude, if your mindset, regardless of how many hurdles you have to jump over in your lifetime, whether it's losing a game, paying a bill, or, maybe a situation that your player might be going through and you're trying your best to help out with them, if you can remain as positive as you can, that definitely is going to influence the people that are surrounded by you, especially, regardless if it's an individual sport like golf or a team sport, swimming or basketball, the environment and the community will feed off of that. I truly believe that. I read a book once upon a time called Feed the Good Dog by Paul McCabe. And with that being said, there was a Native American theory that basically that there's two dogs in your brain, in your heart, and in your soul that they're both fighting and they're both bickering back and forth. One dog is positive and very influential and inspiring and works hard and is great. And then there's a negative dog that likes to put people down, that likes to chew on everything, that likes to just break everything. And really, there's nothing good about that specific dog. So then being that you have two dogs in your brain, heart, and soul all the time, it really comes to the question then, if they're both equally given the same amount of positive and negative energy, how do you know which dog wins? So with that being brought to the attention of the entire crowd of coaches and positive influences that we have in front of this room, what do you think works there? How do you know which dog eventually would win?
The one that gets fed the most.
Absolutely. The dog that gets fed the most. And that's exactly what the answer is. And I didn't understand that completely until I became a coach, because as a player, you're not as experienced. You're not as well-rounded as a human being because you are a little bit younger, whether it's 10 years old, 17 years old. So experiences definitely help you with that answer of that question. And the one that you feed the most is precisely the one that's going to read or that is going to feed the most into your brain, heart, and soul. And that's what we want to do with our players. That's what we want to do with, anybody that comes across our path. I don't care if it's going into Publix and you have to open the door for somebody, that positivity will rub off on other people. I'd like to read a couple of quotes by a professor at UNC, Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. And she stated that there's a perception that the best way to get what you want out of the employees or players is by negativity or threats. But negativity doesn't work as well as positivity. Positive emotions are especially contagious, and a leader's positive emotions are more contagious than anyone else's. Ms. Kelly, when I read those two quotes to you, what comes to mind? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And how powerful do you think these words really mean to you?
Well, I actually think about bosses that I've had that were negative, and I agree that it didn't work as well for me. It got me angry and upset, and I don't think I worked as hard for them. I think I lost a lot of respect for the coaches or bosses or people I've worked for that were negative. But I also have seen positive emotions like being contagious. I think I really have noticed different teams that I've been on or teams that I've coached, when the players or the coaches have a more positive attitude, the whole team has a positive attitude. So I definitely think that the coaches and the captains or leaders on the team can determine what kind of an attitude or culture is going to be on that team.
Absolutely. And everything you just said, I totally agree with the fact that one of the key words that you said was leader, or the term could be leadership. And when you instill leadership qualities and roles at a young age, that can become a domino effect when it comes to growing up and becoming eventually a young teen and then an adult. And I think that's something that as coaches, we need to really, really dig deep into the inner core of the youth sports, is the fact that everything that we're teaching right now, a lot of you teach maybe perhaps a high school or even at a college atmosphere, where the fact that we really need to buckle down and understand that when that 10-year-old is starting to play football for the first time, they really truly need to understand the qualities and characteristics on what it takes to be a positive follower, because I truly believe that you need to follow in order to lead. So once you master how to follow in good qualities, then eventually you can lead. So one has to follow in order to lead. And everything you just said, I totally agree. According to the Sports Illustrated, there's different sources out there between the internet. We mentioned a book about Feed the Good Dog. There's so many ways of approaching Positive Coaching Alliance and approaching our theories and methods behind this movement. Is that according to Alex Wolff in Sports Illustrated, when I was a kid growing up, I had access to Sports Illustrated. It definitely influenced me, and it said that study after study shows the benefits of more positive approach in general. When it comes down to that, the more positive attitude that the community, the coach, and the team comes together on is just the simple fact that regardless of the score and regardless of what happens by the end of the season, you're always going to feel internally more like a winner. And then again, that starts from the top person all the way down to the bottom person, and that ranges from it. They say it takes a village to raise a child. So when it comes down to coaching a player in a sport, we're a lot more than just coaches. We are a teacher. We are a doctor. We can be a psychologist, a therapist. And I think that's what kids need these days, is the fact that they can't have the fear to be able to come to their coach because all they care about is how many points they scored in the game, if they won the game or not. And that goes back to our original goal of what PCA is all about. And it's basically training these young athletes to make sure that they are successful, they are ready, they are prepared, and they're just respectful individuals to be successful in life in general, not just that specific moment or specific sport. There are plenty of elite players and coaches that agree to this. You have NFL quarterbacks like Steve Young. You have the Butler college basketball coach that now is at the Boston Celtics. You have many types of coaches, many types of people that have influenced on players. And the beauty about PCA is that you have the evidence that strictly shows that it's more than just myself that really truly believes in this, and it's more than that. Hopefully by the end of this process that you guys believe in it, that you can pass it on to our youth and pass it on to future coaches. Going along with that, again, we talked about that there's two sides between positive and negative. Mind in the moment on the always most important play distracts you from your task. There's two types of coaches that we have up here. Again, you can argue all you want as far as positivity or negativity when it comes to your claim and the argument that you want to perceive, and you're trying to persuade your audience on to believe you. There's always two sides of the story. So with that being said, as much positive, there's always negative. Ms. Kelly, I want to jump right into just a quick reflection. What is one thing that you experienced, whether you were a coach or a coach illustrated this to you, that when there was a positive or negative reaction, regardless of what took place at that moment, how did you feel inside? How did you grow because of it?
I can remember specifically, as a young sophomore playing field hockey, and I remember my coach screaming at me because I played, front line, left wing, literally right under her nose for half the game. And I can just remember just being embarrassed, being scared. I was the last person. If the ball went through everybody else, I was the last person that had to get it. So I always felt like there was a lot of pressure because if I didn't stop the ball, it'd go out of bounds and then the other team would get it. So I just remember a lot of fear and a lot of, I was just timid. I was afraid to take chances because I was afraid I was going to get yanked out of the game.
Absolutely.
And, 30 years ago, I still picture her spit flying out of her mouth as she was screaming at me from the sidelines if I missed. So
absolutely.
It had an effect.
And that's the world we live in with, with coaches these days, and teachers and people that are trying to influence us, is that, that's the scary thing. I can definitely relate to that. The scary thing about that is that all that negativity and all that stuff that bothered you at the time and probably still bothers you to this moment is the simple fact that you did not forget one moment or one thought you had or feeling you had, because it was that powerful at that time. And if that was 10, 15 years ago and it's still that clear in your mind, that's what I want us as a colleague, as a support system, as a teammate, as coaches, that, that's one of the worst feelings you want, is the timidness or the fear of rejection or the fear of failure. And when a coach makes you feel that way, you're not going to give your best performance. And because of that, the negativity, when it comes to playing the sport or wanting to even try out, when you already have that assumption or when that coach has that type of quality to make someone feel that way, it takes away the honor, it takes away the discipline, it takes away what youth sports is really meant to be, when it comes to, just teaching and educating the player about the sport, but again, life lessons in general. And when the coach takes that away from the player, you're demoralizing, their self-worth in a way that now they're playing, but they're not truly there. They're going through the motion. And as a coach, we really need to make sure that that the player develops a trusting relationship with you. And that takes, time. That definitely takes time where you truly get to know your players on a personal and professional level, obviously understanding your standards and your barriers. With that being said, going back to what this with this PowerPoint that stated, between the positive and negative approach, in your opinion, why do you think that there is so much negativity in sports and it's affecting a lot of our players, but it's also affecting us as coaches?
It's interesting. I just literally came back from a senior field hockey game, and I sat with the opposing team because my niece plays for the opposing team. So it was my home school, sat with the opposing team, and I listened to these parents scream from the sidelines at their kids on the field hockey field just half hour ago. And I was sitting there thinking, why are they being so negative? What is wrong with them? Why are they screaming at the coaches? And usually I say, I think it's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of, they want their kids to succeed. I sat there and listened to them make, complaints in the stands about the coach making poor decisions. But I also think they were so worried because if their team didn't win this game, their kid was not going to go into playoffs. This was the last final game before the playoffs, last game of the season. And I really think the parents just think that success of their child in sports, especially high school sports, leads to success in life. And I think that I understand, because I'm watching the game. I have no skin in the game. My kids aren't playing. It's, they're playing against my school, and my school is beating them. So I was sitting there on the opposing team going, like, what's wrong with you people? Like, I'm seriously thinking in my mind. But I think every single parent was so worried about their daughter not winning because God forbid they don't get to go to playoffs, and God forbid they don't get to go to the leagues, and God forbid they don't get to go to districts. And like, they just thought that, oh my gosh, if they lose this game, it's like going to ruin their kids' lives. And, again, when it's my kid in there, it's probably a different story, but getting to really look at it from an objective view, I don't know. I don't know that it's necessarily, I always say it's like social pressure and, pressure from the media. And I really just think some of these parents thought that their kids' life was going to be miserable, like permanently, if they didn't win this game.
Absolutely. And I totally agree. I've seen it from different perspectives in a way that I've seen it as a ref, as a coach, when my godson was playing flag football, when I'm coaching the sport, when I'm a fan. And I'm glad you brought that up, because your perspective on the success or the victory of that moment changes depending on where you are at that moment. So your view and perspective on how important winning is will change from the fan versus the coach versus the player. And that's the problem that I think we suffer from, is the fact that they put the pressure on winning, and they put the pressure on the simple fact that every single parent out there does not wake up saying, I hope my player or my son or daughter is the worst player on the team. They truly want, their dream is to have them be their superstar. They want them to win the game. They want them to win the playoff game. They want them to make it to the professional league. And again, that's, failing to realize that win or lose, if your son or daughter gave their best and acknowledge the fact that they're learning, having fun, showing sportsmanship, and being disciplined, they didn't just lose a game. They're actually gaining way more than the fact that their score was lower than the other teams. They're learning communication. They're learning teamwork. They're learning what it takes to train your body and mind in a way that you are more educated, you comprehend the sport more than just the actual fact that your score is higher or lower. Now, the score higher or lower definitely will put more pressure, influence you more. Effort can go high or low because of that. Again, sports are very emotional. We tend to get blinded by that. The emotions of sports are so high at certain moments, especially when you're playing an arch rival game, especially when you're playing a close game and it's in overtime. You fail to realize that you want to win, 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 win. and you want to see our score higher than the other team, but there is a big definition of winning the right way. And with that being said, it's us as professionals to follow the PCA vision that regardless of what happens, if you give it your best, because there's somebody out there stronger, there's somebody out there faster, there's somebody out there probably working harder than you. If you gave it the best with your own abilities and you reached your peak performance, the scoreboard will be settled in your heart for the rest of your life. To this day, I was never going to make the NBA. So when I walked on in a Division I program at Buffalo, New York, because I'm from upstate New York. So if I'm talking too fast, I'm from New York, so I apologize. But,
I'm from Philly. I talk fast too. I like it.
Yep, I'm from Syracuse, New York, so I talk fast. The fact that I had to see the bigger picture, that as a walk-on in a Division I program, did not get in games, I wasn't going to be the superstar, and I wasn't going to get playing time. I had to see the bigger picture. Now, the only way I could do that is by focusing on those coaches, those mentors that made me see the light at the end of the tunnel instead of the darkness. Marcus, you're not going to get in the game. Marcus, you're not going to get a lot of playing time and be that superstar. I saw that, well, if I'm not going to make the NBA, what do I want to do with myself in the future? What do I want to be? What do I want to do? Let's concentrate on my GPA. Let's concentrate on making friends. Let's concentrate on being overall morally just a better character and develop my whole entire self instead of just the fact that I'm not the superstar in basketball. Now, I couldn't do that when I was young. I had to get trained with it. I had to get influenced on that. So with that being said, it goes back to the village raises the child, the referees, the coaching, the fans, the bookkeeper, the school, your neighbor. That's where the positivity has to be more than negative in a way, because everything you do, especially with a kid, they're looking up towards you literally and figuratively in a way that what are they going to do when it comes to having a losing or a winning mentality, regardless of what the score is. Mm-hmm. Any questions or concerns on anything that we talked about so far?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. According to the PCA's vision, sports psychology research, the best practices of great coaches to develop are overall better athletes, better people. Now I'm going to repeat myself on that. Better athletes, better people. It has nothing to do with the win or lose column. If you take an athlete and they can't use both hands in the sport, they're only dominant in the right hand, but they're weaker in their left hand, and you train that athlete to be able to use both hands, causing that athlete to be better on the field, on the court, regardless of what sport it is, you're creating an athlete that has to persevere and go from strength to weaknesses in order to better themselves during the sport. But not only that, you're teaching them perseverance, you're teaching them hard work, you're teaching them that regardless of your weaknesses, you can make them stronger, whether that's physically or mentally. Now let's take that off the field. Let's take it as a student athlete, and we have an in the classroom session. Better athletes, better people. A great way to make an athlete better is just understanding the whys. Why do you have to serve the ball the way you do in volleyball? Why do you follow through in a jump shot? Why do you put your fingers on the laces on a football the way it is? Why do they snap it the way they do? I think educating the player, the student athlete, more about the sport and the reasons why you do the way you do things is the same reason why you have qualifications on why you get a job, on why you're going to be a good student. Listening skills, note-taking skills, communication skills, being able to listen and talk without interrupting. So those better athletes become better people, because not only are you teaching the skill for that specific sport, you're teaching them skills that they can take to be a better person overall, regardless of if they're playing a sport or not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. So we do have support from PCA, research-based coaching model to guide you, practical tools, ongoing support, book as a resource, weekly coach talking points. Again, I did mention that the beauty about the power of double goal coaching is that once you are a part of this movement and this organization, is that you do receive ongoing emails. You have references to a book that is well known by Jim Thompson, and yes. And then again, there's internet sources, obviously, and then nowadays 10-year-olds know the internet probably better than us as adults. So if you YouTube or Google, there are so many great shows out there that Kobe Bryant, I believe, just started one. In regards to just mainstream and positivity when it comes to sports and just the effects that they can have on us on our life. that's the beauty about PCA, is the fact that we do have the support coming from professionals out there, and then your typical coach that is coaching youth basketball right down the street. If we can touch the lives of more and more people and not just focus on maybe the most professional coaches in the world, then the positivity and the power of double goal coaching will be that much more successful. Kids these days will be that much more successful on and off the during the sport. Is there anything you would like to add or anything you would like to say?
No, I think you're good.
All right. Because we're running out of time.
Stop you in about a minute. I want to be able to give you some feedback, and I have to stop at 7. So.
Yep. Awesome. Okay. We're running out of time, but that brings me to my next point. What makes a great youth sports experience for kids? Think about when you were a kid, 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm not supposed to ask a woman her age. My mom would kill me. But with that being said, no, think about youth sports. What makes a great youth sports experience for kids? And what I would do is, in a room full of people, is have them partner talk, share with somebody, even if they have to get up out of their seat and talk to them. That's really important. Like, I want to get the people talking to each other, and then they would vocally tell me some answers. So, Miss Kelly, what makes a great youth sports experience for kids?
I'm going to pretend I gave you all the right answers.
Okay. No, that's perfect. Has there ever everything that you just said? Does anybody agree or disagree with what Miss Kelly said? With that being said, could you feed off of what she said? Was there a time that you personally experienced it, or are you experiencing it now as a coach with a player? I would listen to a lot of their answers, feed off of them and stuff. I think the biggest thing about the PCA organization is the fact that we have to learn from each other. So as much as I'm mentoring and teaching about this stuff, that we have to be humble when it comes to, we don't know everything. So, and that we're not going to experience every single thing that everybody else does. So listening to their stories is probably the best way to learn and what's meaningful. Which brings me to next 3 things that are pretty important. A meaningful athlete experience. Number 1, feeling connected to teammates and coach. Number 2, believing that they can improve. Number 3, feeling proud about acting with integrity. What I would do this with a group of people is I would assign 3 parts of it. I would say I want the left side to take number 1, the middle side to take number 2, the right side to take number 3. And I want you to group chat with each other about what this means to you. How important it is, and what are the effects? Why is it important? And so I would talk to each group about that. And then I would go to, if your players get these 3 things, what might happen? And then that would become a group discussion. So I would break it off into 3 sections, and then I'd bring it all together. I'd have them talk, think about it, about 30 seconds to a minute. And then what are 3 things that might happen if these players follow these 3 things? And then I'll end on this because I know you got to go. Will bring me to the PCA coaching model. There are 3 things that they connect, that they want us to define, to comprehend, and to illustrate to not only just the student athlete, but I think to anybody that comes across our paths, because it's very important. As a teacher, as a 4th grade teacher, the emotional tank, the Allen Tree of Mastery, and honoring the game, or honoring your self-worth. You're honoring your teaching position. Or if you're a banker, just honoring your position at that moment. The connection, the improving, and the integrity all come together. And then that's when I'd start breaking each one down. Yeah.
Awesome. So then for the intro, the only last thing is talking about the legacy with the Herm Edwards video.
And, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm just saying, like, for time-wise, just letting you know, the only other part left in the introduction piece is bringing the coaches full circle, having them realize at the end of their life, they're making a difference. And you already brought that up earlier. So I think that was good. And then just the double goal coach model. So it goes into the first principle, bam, you're there. So you were almost through. I'm not so super focused on the 20 minutes. I just give that as a guide, because the reason I do it is because if you do 20 minutes on the intro, 20 minutes on feeling the emotional tank, 20 on Elm Tree of Mastery, 20 on honoring the game, you're almost at 90 minutes. And these workshops, we give you a 2-hour block to do the workshops, sometimes less.
Correct.
But if you can get through the content in about 90 minutes, you'll have enough cushion room to, really answer questions. Or they always usually start late. They might, people might straggle in late.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of great feedback, Marcus. I really thought that was great. I take a lot of notes when I do these workshops, these demos. And most of the time sometimes I'm writing down like critical feedback. Sometimes I'm stealing ideas. I really like the way you phrased a lot of things. I like your passion for it. So I was actually jotting down some notes that I'm going to steal, because I was like, that's good. I like that. So if you see me writing, that's why. But I do think that just in terms of time management, that was about a half hour. and you were moving fast. So one thing that I would encourage you to do, I'm a fast talker as well. I'm from Philly and I talk a mile a minute. And the one thing that I've learned to do is not only slow down at some parts, speed up others, slow down at some parts, but take some things out that are just extra talking. I mean, obviously you're a talker. And as I said, I'm speaking your language because I'm a talker too. But a lot of the things that you brought up in the introduction, I think you can wait and save it for the principal. You know, like a lot of the things you brought up right away, which are fantastic points, but save that and share that part when you get to honoring the game, or share that part when you get to Elm Tree of Mastery. And as you get comfortable with the workshop, you're going to learn which you don't want to give them everything. I always think of the introduction as kind of the trailer. You know, you want everybody kind of like, this is what we're going to talk about, but you don't want to tell them everything right in the intro, because, you know, if you ever watch a trailer to a movie and they show all the best scenes, then you watch the movie and you're like, well, the best parts were in the trailer.
Exactly.
So you want it. It's almost like a teaser. Like you want to get them hype about learning it later. Don't tell them everything all up front. So that would be my one suggestion. Again, that would also cut down your introduction to about 15. I also think personally, there are way too many slides in this introduction. That's just my own personal opinion. So
I agree.
Yeah. And we're working on that. So some of them, you know, you don't necessarily, this time I'm glad that you did. I want you as trainers to know all the information, know all the slides, so that you can use your own ability to take out things you think are redundant.
Correct.
But if you know them at first, you know, it's hard to take them out. So I'm glad that you know them. Now that you know them, you have my permission to hide some of the ones that you think are just redundant. If you've already said it, don't put it up on a slide and say it.
Absolutely.
I appreciate you going by the book. I think that was good. Just a couple quick comments. I really liked the way you were prepared. Your pace, I thought was great. I think a quick pace keeps people interested. But again, use that to your advantage. If you're a quick, high energy person and you come down to a slower pace and talk a little bit lower and softer, that can make people lean in.
Okay.
So just from a public speaking skill point of view, use that to your advantage.
Okay.
And I'm a high energy nut, but when I'm talking about negativity, I talk slow. I do a lot of pausing.
Okay.
And I give them a lot of chance to think. And people are like, whoa, you know, there's some people that are low energy and I ask them to ramp it up to keep it interesting. But if you're a high energy person, sometimes ramping it down is more impactful. So just a little trick in there.
Okay.
The other thing real quick, we are in the business of changing behavior, and you don't have to necessarily tell the coaches that, but when you're a teacher, and I get that. I was a teacher too. I taught third grade for 9 years. I get it. You're in teacher mode, and PCA workshops, as you said, are about coach mode. We want to be able to help these coaches understand that this isn't a class. This isn't about the education piece. It's not about how much information I can give you. It's about how can I inspire you to want to be a better coach? How can I inspire you to want to impact these kids better and make these kids better? And you have so much passion for this, and I can just tell that that's who you are. It's hard not to want to tell them everything.
True.
But from a learning standpoint, they're not going to remember it unless they're experiencing it. So I think, you know, one of the best things I think you did was, and where did I write it down? When you said, you know, your story about being a walk-on, a D1 athlete, I would put that in the front because that connects me to who you are.
Okay.
And one of the things I like to tell trainers is that if you're in the front of the room and I don't know who you are, you have no credibility to me. You know, you're just a guy that knows PCA stuff and you can read slides. But if I know why, I want to know your why right off the bat, Marcus. I want to know why you're here. Why are you taking your time out of your schedule to come and talk to me about how to be a better coach? Like, I'm not trying to be a pain in the neck, but like, what gives you the right to do this? And I think you have such a passion for this. There's a reason. And as a coach sitting in your workshop, I want to know what that reason is. So tell us that right up front, or share a story with us that makes this real to me right up front.
May I add something to that? When I originally thought that I had to do my own PowerPoint, that was my first my slide was about a little bit of my background and just a couple little experiences and stuff. So I totally agree with what you just said.
Yeah. So put that. I mean, you can pop a slide in that has, you know, something about yourself. That's fine. If you want to put, you know, Buffalo up, that's fine. You know, do whatever you need to do.
Okay.
So the other thing, so we just use the phrase like teach and preach. And I think sometimes teach and preach gives people the idea like, oh gosh, here we go. He's going to rant. So just be careful about the language of telling coaches like we're here to teach and preach, because that gets people like, that's not what I want to hear.
True.
You know, you want to work with the coaches. So just a quick language thing.
Okay.
I also like the way you brought in the definition of coach. I think that's really important because you really brought in the life in life. It's not, we're not just talking about you as a sports coach. You know, you're a mentor, you're the psychologist, you're the, you know, you're a parent to some of these kids. You're more of a parent to some of these kids than their parents are. And so I like the way you brought that in. I think that's a really good point. All right. What else did I say here? Oh, just a couple things. They, if I can go back to Charlie Marr and Ken Ravizza, this slide right here about what negativity does.
Yes.
They are, they're sports psychologists, and you can, you know, read some of the notes about them. But the reason for this slide is that the research behind what Charlie Marr, who's a sports psychologist for the Cleveland Indians, and the late Ken Ravizza, who worked with the Chicago Cubs, actually study physiologically what negativity does. And so that's why that slide's in there, to give us a little bit of street cred with the psychology behind it. So, you know, I think you said like these are coaches, and that's, you know, it wasn't that big of a deal. Nobody's going to know it in your workshop if you say they're coaches or sports psychologists, but I'm just letting you know that's why it's in there, to talk about, you know, men that have spent their life studying this.
And
have brought professional teams to a higher level because they've studied this and they realize negativity doesn't work in Major League Baseball to get players to do what you need them to do. So I'm just putting that in there. Let me see. What else did I say that you like? Oh, the village raising the child. I think that's so important. And it's one of the reasons, too, that we also really hit home about the coaches and the parents having a partnership. And, you know, as coaches, as we said, you have the power. You have a really big power over these parents, too. When you get a kid on your team, you also get their parents. And that's a reality that coaches forget sometimes. Like, oh, yeah, I want to coach, you know, Little League or AAU basketball. The parents are a pain in the neck. And we really hit home that you're coaching the parents, too. And that's something a lot of coaches say, oh, I love my job except for the parents. Well, that means that you as a coach are not doing a good job coaching the parents. So that's just something I like to bring up, because whenever you get this question in the workshop about negativity, somebody's going to bring up parents. They always do. And that's why I brought it up too when you asked me, because that's the first thing. That's the time when you can say, you know what? The parents are part of your team too.
Correct.
We got to coach the parents. We got to put expectations out there for the parents, and you can't be weak there. You know, if you're going to have the kids on the team, there's actually a, Carmen Samuels, a trainer down in Tampa, who, I don't know if you know her, she coaches basketball. And she started about a year ago telling the parents, if they say something negative to a player on the court, she'll take their player out. Like she's like, I needed a consequence. Instead of throwing the parents out of the room, if I hear you scream anything negative from the sidelines, your player's coming out. Your son or daughter's coming out of the game.
Like,
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I like that, you know?
Absolutely.
Tell them that's why. Mom foul. You're coming, you know, this one's coming out. Anyway, I thought that was interesting. So what else do I say here? Oh, I really like the way you were talking about the both hands, that analogy of, you know, teaching the kids to dribble with their left or dribble with their right. I like the way you took that sports analogy and equated it to life. I think you have a really great theme going through, that sports is a lot more about coaching life. And Jim Thompson uses the phrase character lab. You know, youth sports is a character lab. You're not necessarily going to learn character, maybe in your classroom you do, but like sitting in a math class, a 9th grade math class is not going to teach you about your character, but going out on a soccer field every single day is. And one of the things that I like to share, and you kind of touched on it in the workshop, is that, you know, all these parents that are so high strung and want their kids to win and put this pressure on to win, what they're trying to do is keep their kids from having adverse situations. They're trying to avoid adversity for their kids.
Make it easy. Yep.
Right. Yet when you look back at your life, the things that made you stronger were the adversity. So, you know, Absolutely. Getting parents to just understand that losing is actually a really character building experience for kids. And by you screaming down your kid's throat, if they're not performing and they're not winning, it's actually hurting them, not only on the field, but it's hurting them in life because of the life lessons, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to give you the whole speech. You get the point. But I think, you know, at workshops, I've done hundreds of workshops. And when you see coaches realize the power that they have to teach parents, we do parent workshops as well, but coaches to explain this type of thing to parents, it's like a big aha moment for them. They're like, wow, I never thought about that. Like I never thought about explaining to parents that losing is just as important as winning. Kids don't learn as much when they have an undefeated season. I guarantee it.
Absolutely. Yep. I've experienced both. Absolutely.
They learn a lot more about life when they're losing, and they can bounce back and come back and get it. So anyway, that was just my comments. I'm really impressed, Marcus. I think it was great. I'm looking forward to, and that's why we do 3 demos, because your first one is where you like get it out of your system. Tell us everything we want to hear. The second one, I'd like to have it be more of you. We want it to be the same content, because we want our workshops to obviously have a standard across the board. But you seem like the kind of guy, like you're talking about group share, pair share. I want you to throw that in there. I want you to make this your own, but I also want you to make it about the coaches. So whatever you can do to bring out stories out of all the coaches, and just tell us, like, I like how you said, I'm going to have them group share. I'm going to have them chat, get up, move around. That's what we're looking for. That's why we call them that's why we call them workshops, not clinics or classes or lectures or seminars. So use your gifts. I mean, and I joke all the time, my skills that I use in my workshops, 99% of them are skills I use with my third graders in the classroom.
Yeah, same thing. Yep.
And I'm telling you, it's so funny. People are like, oh, wow, you run such great workshops. I'm like, I run a workshop with adults as if they were third graders. And
that's how my mentality. Yep.
And do it. I mean, do it, because it's so funny how, I never coached in the NBA, but there's trainers out there that have many more coaching credentials than I do, and their workshops are boring. And, we try so hard. All the tactics I bring in are from teaching elementary school. And it keeps the coaches engaged. It's cooperative learning. It's, it's all that kind of stuff. So that's a major asset that you have of being an elementary teacher. Plus the passion, plus the coaching, all that stuff. So I'm excited. I am looking forward to seeing your next demo where you do one of the principles.
Okay.
And because each of the principles is broken up into 3 sections. It's what the principle is and the research and reason behind that principle, which leads to the, the connection, the improving, or the integrity piece. Then it's a scenario to have this solidify it for the coaches. How will you use this principle on your team? So we got them to think about their team. And then the most important part are the tools. So I want you to really think about, how can you get these coaches to use and practice these tools while they're sitting at your workshop? Have them use the language, have them get role play. What would you tell a kid? What would you tell somebody? Get them up there and have them drain tanks, have them fill tanks, have them practice giving receivable feedback, praising unsuccessful effort, using if-then statements. If you can have these coaches practice these tools at your workshop, they're going to be much more likely to go out and use it.
Absolutely.
If you tell them what it is and don't give them an example and show them how to do a winner's circle, like I get coaches up to huddle and they do a winner's circle at my workshop and they're praising each other left and right and effort goals, and they're sharing. It's silly. They're acting. It's all fun, but they're like, I could do this at my practice tomorrow. This is easy, so whatever you can do to bring these tools to life. The tools is what the coaches always say at the end of every workshop. What's the best part of the workshop? They all write the tools that I can use, because that's all they want to know is, how can I make my players win more games? Bottom line. And we're going to give them the ways to do it, the abstract, but we also want to give them the concrete. This is what you're going to do. We're going to give them a 5-to-1 ratio. We're going to give them a criticism sandwich.
Absolutely.
We're going to high five them. We're going to ask them how their day is. Coaches don't even think about that stuff. They're worried about how to teach the kids how to get the ball in the basket.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
So that's my advice. Thank you so much for zipping this in.
Okay, thank you.
Let me know when you're ready to do a tool.
Okay.
I mean, you're probably ready now because you were going to do them both tonight. So unfortunately, it's 7
No, I understand.
I'm not ready, but let me know when you are, and we'll set it up with you.
The next video is that just 20 minutes on one tool? Is that the next video?
20 minutes on one principle.
Okay.
So there's 3 principles: the filling the emotional tank, honoring the game, and Elm Tree of Mastery. Those are the next 3 sections of the workshop. Take one of those sections, and you can go back in the course and you can go see where it says like demo 2 and watch somebody just do that one section.
Yep. Yeah, I saw one. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I want to pick one. I mean, you can do the next one. You can do filling emotional tanks, because that's the next one in order, or you can pick mastery, pick whatever one you want.
Okay, perfect.
All right. Thanks, Marcus. Have a good
All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.